everyone. My name is Shumo. I'm the co-founder of Nebra and Apps. First, how's everyone is doing today? Good. Thanks. Thank you. Today my topic is a little bit controversial, but if you actually listen to my talk carefully, it's actually not that controversial. Thanks MJ to suggest this like a very spicy name in this like afternoon. Everyone want to sleep. I hope people feel less sleepy. That's my biggest goal of this talk. So I guess, have you experienced bridging in your DGen life? Among my crypto experiences, bridging is the only experiences will actually raise my cortisol level, right? Just like when I hit the button, I'm anxious, waiting. Am I getting rugged? Am I not getting rugged? Is fun like a successful transfer? I think this is everyone's experience intuitively, right? But today, I'm going to tell you more like in-depth analysis why I think bridge is kind of a scam, and then how can we fix that? So here is the outline of the talk. First, I'm going to show you various aspects of the bridging is broken. So in my view, there are two broken pieces. The first broken piece is about the security leakage, and second broken piece is about abstraction leakage. And then I will tell you, at least in my view, the way to move forward is to bring what I call native interoperability. And first, I will tell you what is native interoperability, and then I can show you how the native interoperability can kill the bridges for the good. So first, let's talk about security leakage, right? Again, in this like a very sleepy afternoon, I'm going to do this little quiz. So suppose you have a bridge asset. Let's say you have a wrapped ETH bridge to Solana, and whatever bridge you use doesn't really matter here, right? What is the security level of this wrapped ETH on Solana? The first candidate answer is the stronger of the security of Ethereum or Solana. Doesn't really matter which one is stronger. And the second candidate answer is the weaker of the Ethereum and Solana. And the third candidate answer is none of these above. So for people who believe the option A, which is stronger of these two, please raise your hand. Great, this is really like a no left curve group. For people who believe the number 2, please raise your hand. Okay, a few. For people who believe number 3, please raise your hand. Okay, wow, that's very, very impressive. So here's my claim. I think the correct answer, at least in my view, is number 3. So it's simply based on the fact that the failure probability of the bridge asset is additive with respect to both source chain and the destination chain, right? Let's actually look into that. So suppose the failure probability of Ethereum is P, and the failure probability of Solana is Q, right? And here, I claim either Ethereum fail or Solana fail, and this bridge asset is gonna fail. So it's very easy to get the failure probability of wrapped ETH on Solana is P plus Q minus this PQ term. And if we assume the probability of the Solana fail and the Ethereum fail kind of independent, it's P times Q. And also both P and Q are extremely small in real world. And the third term is like much, much smaller than both P and Q. So it's almost additive from the failure probability and the Solana and the ETH. And now we still haven't bring our main character, which is the bridge. And if you take a deeper look, we need to think about the failure probability of the bridges, right? Suppose the probability of a bridge that fails is R, then we can do this like more joint distribution. Then you can see the true probability that wrapped ETH on Solana fails is P plus Q plus R, and there are some like a gigabrain terms here. We probably can safely ignore them for today, right? So you can see the failure probability of a bridge asset is additive over the source chain, the destination chain, and the bridges. And I know there are many like a ZK nerd in this group. Somebody may ask, like, what about ZK? What about ZK? Can ZK help? Right? I think the right I think the right answer here is that ZK can help a bit. If you have the perfect bridge on Earth, which is a ZK snark encoded consensus bridge with end-to-end formal verification, right? This is the safest bridge you can build. And what ZK bridge can do here is that this can actually minimize the R term, right? This can minimize R to close to 0, pending bugs in your code or formal verification bugs, whatever, right? And still, right, this is a structural problem of the bridge asset I want to mention here, regardless of your bridging technique. And in fact, there is a more interesting scenario actually Vitalik wrote in his Reddit blog post 2 years ago about a hypothetical mental experiment about a 51% attack. Suppose we have a ZK snark-backed consensus bridge with end-to-end formal verification and can bring down R to almost 0 between Ethereum and Solana, right? And this is a sequence, how can you still lose money? So the first sequence is that suppose Alice deposit 100 ETH on the Ethereum side of the bridge. And then, of course, Alice can get 100 wrapped ETH on Solana. So now Bob's attacker comes. Bob's attacker actually also deposit 100 ETH on the Ethereum bridge side. And Bob's attacker now, once the bridge transaction is confirmed, he gets the 100 wrapped ETH and traded to USDC on Solana. And now Bob's attacker actually initiated an Ethereum 51% attack. And this 51% attack will revert the step 3, right? Now what ends up happens is that this a bridge contract on Ethereum only have 100 ETH instead of 200 ETH, while we have 200 bridged wrapped ETH on Solana, which means this is only 50% backup for the bridgings, and Alex actually lose about 50 ETH-ish, right? So this clearly shows this structural problem that this a bridge asset has, regardless of how good your bridge is. So the second issue of bridges, I call it abstraction leakage, and let's dive into that. So at its core, if you think bridge asset is bridge asset, that's just wrong, right? And under the cover, bridge asset is a synthetic IOU. By synthetic IOU means it's actually new token minted by the bridges, right? And what that can happen. So the problem here is that this will create path dependencies and also lead to liquidity fragmentation. Let me give you an example of that. So for example, this is a screenshot I captured from Osmosis, right? So I know this asset is a little bit hard to read, so let me explain to you, right? So this is a moonbeam.accelerar. So basically means, so there are 2 wraps here. First wrap is that there is a wrap from Polkadot to Moonbeam, and that's a Moonbeam wrap Polkadot. And then you go through the bridges accelerar, and then there's another wrap. Basically, it's a Moonbeam wrapped dot and wrapped by accelerar, right? And depending on this kind of wrapping process of this synthetic IOUs, you could have different things for the same a tether asset. For example, another path could well be like a Kala wrapped dot, and then finally wrapped by wormhole. So the problem here you can see here is that because of these path dependencies, these 2 kind of the same asset, they're non-fungible. And this causes liquidity fragmentation, and this causes all the issues we have today in the bridge-dominated world. So to recap, right, I showed you the security leakage, I showed you the abstraction leakage of the bridge asset. And how can we move forward? What is a better path? So the better path we're proposing here is native interoperability. So first, we have to come to the realization, right? Because of first half of the talk, I showed you that the security and abstraction leakage among consensus is kind of inevitable. This is not about who can build better bridges. However, right, as we can see, there are many things can be fixed and should be fixed under the same consensus. And this industry is increasingly moving to the Rollup-centric roadmaps. And here is, we take a little bit step back and look at the grand landscape of ROPs. And we really think ROPs are the new kind of verifiable servers. And we kind of categorize the ROP into 3 factors. First is because this is where is this verifiability guarantee coming from, right? Is this objective attributable fault? Is this like intersubjective attributable fault? There are pros and cons, there are some intersections, but I do think both are kind of useful in the space. And secondly, we'll look at whether this is stateful or stateless, right? And the third question we ask is, where is the security coming from? Is this coming from cryptographic security? And is this coming from crypto-economic security? And by working this kind of like taxonomy trees, you can get ZK ROPs, optimistic ROPs, like on-chain oracles, storage proofs, optimistic, and maybe some AVS-based ROPs. We haven't invented that, but I think eventually people are going to be building that. And maybe we have like AVS-based off-chain oracles, right? We kind of having this generalized definition of ROPs. So thinking about what is a like interoperability solution for this generalized ROPs. So our realization is we can have native interoperability by making cross-ROP transactions the first-class citizen, and also make these cross-ROP transactions be the part of the settlement. So that's a high-level idea here. And what I mean by that, right? So we have this wonderful tool for proof aggregation. It's kind of like a super glue, can glue the validity proofs, can glue the cross-ROP transactions, can even glue the intent if you want to satisfy to have a safety guarantees for all this above, right? And here, this is the architecture we're kind of proposing here, right? I know it's very complicated, but let's starting from something simple. Let's starting from the definition of meta-transactions. A meta-transactions here is defined as cross-ROP transactions bundled with constraint. So cross-ROP transactions, everyone knows there are some transactions on ROP A, some transactions on ROP B, but also it contains metadata defines its dependencies and atomic inclusion guarantees of these transactions. And then, instead of sending these meta-transactions to the individual ROP, this meta-transaction can be sent and should be sent to the coordination module. And this coordination module will route these meta-transactions, its individual part, together with this metadata to the ROP sequencers and get a confirmation from the ROP sequencers, kind of a promise, hey, I'm gonna actually include these meta-transactions in the next epoch. And then, after this ROP provers generated validity proof, so we have a safety module. At the same time, we'll generate an inclusion proof of these meta-transactions among all the stage root of the ROPs. And there could be additional intent satisfaction proofs to actually prove some more fancy intent languages. For example, if you want to know what this intent language is, please read Anoma's like 40-page white paper. But the TLDR here is that the way I view intent is a predicate language over the ROP state, right? So you can have a statement, a predicate over the ROP state, say, hey, this trading price have to be above or below a certain threshold, and then we can aggregate all the proof into a single proof and put it to the settlement contract and put it into the settlement layer, right? I think, and by the way, since I'm getting sandwich attacked by both Cooper and Josh from Astra on the share sequencing, right? So I want to making sure what's the relationship of this kind of like architecture with share sequencing. So this is complete orthogonal to share sequencing because it's actually much weaker than share sequencing. All we need is that all the sequencers give us a guarantee that all these meta transactions is included in the next epoch, right? You could use share sequencing to implement that, but you don't have to, right? You can just have, for example, share mempool of these like meta transactions that should be working sufficiently. Okay, so that's a general picture. So, and basically the thesis here is that we do think the native interoperability designed from the first principle will actually kill the bridges and for the good. So here, let me give you a laundry list of what we think this native interoperability can unlock. We actually think this is a huge ecosystem-wide unlock. First, it will fix the security leakage from the first principle. And second, you will have an enforceable cross-rollup intent thanks to the proof aggregation and rollup state predicate. And third, it actually can provide better developer experiences for chain abstraction and wallet builders. And fourth, it will have a better capital efficiency for cross-rollup market makers because now you can have a safety guarantee for your cross-rollup transactions instead of having taken chances. Next, it will actually have less liquidity requirements to start up a new chain. So starting a new chain will be much, much easier. And last but not least, right, it actually enables new use cases. Like you can have a purely asset-based chain that to fix this abstraction leakage. So basically nowadays you just issue an asset as a chain, and now everyone is canonical. There's no past dependencies anymore, right? But the most importantly, for all this above, I think native interoperability actually equals to lower frictions for both like market makers, traders, builders, and more importantly, better UX, right? I don't think in the Rollup-centric world, Ethereum can be as good as Solana, but there's like one step forward we can take to make kind of Ethereum experience very, very close to Solana. I think that's possible. And with that, I'll end my talk here. So here is the key takeaway, right? So first is that I say bridge is scam, but not really, right? Just like I'm majorly mean that there is a security leakage and there's abstraction leakage. And what if we have native interoperability? So the key idea here is to making cross-rollup transactions first-class citizen on the settlement, and then we can build a much beautiful world. Thanks, everyone. Yeah.